What's up, everybody? You are here with the Fly Guy, and I am excited to be out today. It is a beautiful day out. I have been waiting for this weather for so long, and you know what? The carp are feeding. I am really looking forward to this. I have a feeling it's going to be a great day. I feel like I could catch a lot of fish today, but hey, we'll see. I'll be glad with just one. So if this is your first time stopping in, my name's Matt Campbell. I'm a fly fishing addict. I've worked as a fly fishing guide and lived up in Alaska for a few years. I've been fly fishing since I was really young, and I grew up living in Ohio, so I didn't have many trout opportunities. So I fly fish for all kinds of warm water species, but I also go after steelhead and trout too, just whenever I get the chance. So if you like fly tying, fly fishing, and just anything about the sport, this might be a good time for you to subscribe and make sure you hit that bell. All right, so I've seen a lot of fish feeding close to the shore. This could be a really epic day. I'm really looking forward to it. Let's get out there and see if we can't get some carp on the fly. As you can see here, this water is just absolute chocolate milk. You can barely see in it, but I'm still able to see tails and fish feeding in the shallows. So let's see if we can't get into something here. Throughout this video, I'm going to provide you with some tips that are going to help you bring more carp to the net next time you go out and chase carp on the fly rod. The first tip that I'm going to give you is going to seem basic, but it's really important. When you are fly fishing for carp, you need to be aware of feeding behavior, so you need to stop, look, and listen. Sometimes it's best to just stand in place and watch carp as they feed. This will give you a bird's eye view of how the carp are feeding, and it'll eliminate any unnecessary spooking. Carp are very wary, and they can be spooked very easily, so avoiding that up front is only to your benefit. Also, by finding out their feeding behavior and understanding how they're feeding, you can then determine the feeding window and know how long you have to present to that fish before it moves on. In this section of the marsh, I had very little cover to work with, so I got down on my knees and I started to watch the carp feed. These fish were rooting around in vegetation, hitting their heads up against reeds and tall grass, along with some bushes, to feed on aquatic insects and other things in the water like spiders, crayfish, or helgamites. I will tell you that fish that are feeding in aquatic vegetation typically don't stay still too long. They move from each plant to the next, and you have a very small window of opportunity before that fish moves on. Sometimes these can be some of the more challenging fish to go after, but if you place your presentation right, you can definitely catch these fish. If you're going to target fish that are feeding near aquatic vegetation and are moving constantly, you need to put the fly either to the right or the left of its head so that it gives a visual of your fly. You need to make sure that it does not sit on the bottom and that it suspends right in the fish's strike zone so that it can eat quickly and you can get a good hook set without getting snagged. The fish you're seeing here splashing around in the shallows are a mix of feeding fish and late spawning fish. This makes it especially important to sit and wait so you can see which fish are feeding and which fish you can target. All right, everybody, so right in front of me there's like 5 or 6 carp feeding. I've got a lot of opportunities here, and I am going to try my best to get at these fish. I've got so many fish in front of me, this is just like, I've got to choose which one I want. This is where you have to use stealth mode. You've got to creep up on these fish and really move slowly, or they'll see you. In order to catch more carp, you have to understand their vision. Carp vision is very good. However, you have to understand that they have limited binocular vision, but they do have a good sense of monocular vision. Now the difference here is that their eyes are set on the sides of their head, okay? So they have a very wide angle of vision, but it's monocular, which is low definition. They can see movement, but not objects. So at a distance, okay, they're only able to see movement, but not be able to focus in on objects that are specific. Now, as you get closer to a carp, they do have a limited small window of binocular vision, which is high definition vision. They can use this to focus in sharply on objects at close range. However, there is a small blind spot right in front of their nose. So when they actually eat something, like your fly, They are now relying on touch and taste, not vision, to be able to understand what food they're taking in. This is why it's so important to use stealth and slow movements when you're approaching carp. If you use quick movements and alert them to your presence, they're gone. Got him. There it is. So this is a smaller fish, but man, he fought really hard. What a good looking fish that is. Just beautiful golden colors. Look at him. Nice fish. Nice fish. Let's go ahead and get him back. In combination with their vision, carp also have very sensitive hearing. They can hear a broader range of frequencies than most fish. When you are walking, it's very important for you to make sure that you step as lightly as possible. You don't have to be perfect with it, you just have to make sure that you're not just breaking stuff under your feet, being loud, throwing gear down on the ground. You just need to make sure that you're taking caution as you're walking and really focusing on each step that you take, to make sure that you make as little noise as possible. If you spook fish that are feeding and they're anywhere close to other fish that are feeding, typically that will set off a chain reaction where all those fish are going to just be done. Those fish will follow one another and they understand and sense that there's a threat, and you've just spooked a pot of fish where potentially you could have had a couple opportunities to present. So it's very important to make sure that you're not, walking aggressively near feeding fish. You need to take caution, move slowly, and make sure that you pay attention to your steps. And if you think that a carp may have noticed you, one of the best things you can do is just stop and stand still. You won't make any noise because you're not walking, and you won't be making any motion, so you don't activate their vision capabilities. If you look at my clothing, you'll notice that it is not bright and flashy. One thing that I can tell you about carp is that because they are able to detect motion at a distance, it's very important for you to be camouflaged. You don't need to go crazy with this. You don't need to look like an Army Ranger. You don't need a ghillie suit, okay? All you need to do is just make sure that you have natural looking clothing. Here in the video you can see that I'm wearing just some olive clothing. I do have my waders on. I've got a camo hat, but not everything is camoed. It's all about making sure that you blend in the best that you can with your surroundings, and always make sure that you pay attention to that, because the more you can blend in, the less you're going to spook fish. By using stealth and blending in, it enables you to get closer so you don't have to cast longer. This will eliminate false casting and shadows, and it will also improve the accuracy of your presentation and will increase your hookup percentage. Then when it all comes together, you can get a hookup and hopefully land a fish. Oh. Got a hook up here, guys, but he is tangled. Dang. Oh. There we go. There we go. There we go. Get out of them weeds. All right. Oh, there's a nice size fish here. Nice size fish. Okay, guys. These fish are just so much fun. They put up such a battle. This fish here, I did not feel him take it. All I saw was his mouth open and my fly disappear. I barely saw it. The water is like chocolate milk. It is so difficult to see in here, and instantly when you hook up with these fish, they take you right into weeds, sticks, and everything else. It's a real challenge, but I'm glad I stuck with it because this fish was well worth it. Let's go ahead and get him back. Okay, so we've talked about how to sneak up on carp and get ourselves in position to fish. We've talked a little bit about their hearing and vision, and a little bit about how to present. But now let's talk about one of the most important things, and something that I focus on as the fly guy. That's the fly pattern. So the beautiful thing about carp is that you don't need complicated flies. They should be simple, but yet they should reflect some of the foods that they see in their natural environment. You don't need to go overboard with this. There's just a couple keys to keep in mind. They do need to ride hook point up, so if you tie your flies, if you're tying carp flies, you need to make sure that you are tying them with dumbbell eyes or with some other type of weighting system that gets your fly riding hook point up in the water column. Next, you need to also be thinking about water clarity. There it is. The dark hybrid. Great fly for muddy water carp. Water clarity determines what pattern you throw, above all else. You could be throwing the food item that they're eating regularly, but if they can't see it, it doesn't matter. I am using the Darth Vader carp fly, or the dark hybrid as I call it. It is a black fly, and it has a high contrast against the muddy water. The carp can see it. And then when they get up close, they see that red tail, okay? It's just like that traditional hybrid carp fly where it's got a red or pink chenille that resembles a worm. However, it's not chenille, it's a rubber leg. It's a little bit more durable and it doesn't fall apart. I don't have to burn the end so it doesn't unravel. And it provides action when I'm not doing anything to the fly. I sit it on the bottom and whatever movement is around, it's gonna wiggle that rubber leg and it's gonna entice them. So when you're tying your carp flies, just make sure that you incorporate materials into them that are gonna move when you're not doing anything to the fly. Because a lot of times you're not gonna be retrieving the fly. So it's going to be sitting there motionless on the bottom. I would recommend having, some of the same patterns with different size dumbbell eyes so that you have different weights for different depth, depending on where the carp are feeding. Because if they're feeding in deeper water and they're still oriented towards the bottom, you need to be able to get down quickly so you can put it in their strike zone. I am going to provide you in this video with 3 links to 3 very successful carp patterns that I fish myself and tie myself. I will picture them above and provide links at the bottom for you so you can see the tying recipes. And I'm also going to be providing you with some tying demos soon on these 3 patterns. So stay tuned for that. These 3 carp flies will get you into fish almost anywhere. The carp crawler represents crayfish, which is a top food item for carp. You need to have rust-colored and crayfish-colored patterns in your fly box for carp. That fly right there, you could almost fish it exclusively and catch carp almost anywhere. But you do need some extras in your box depending on their feeding behaviors and the environments that you're going to fish them in. That's where the mudwalker comes in. The mudwalker resembles damselfly nymphs, which are also another big food item for carp, especially when they're rooting around in aquatic vegetation. If you see that carp are knocking their heads up against reeds and they are trying to eat aquatic insects, the mudwalker is a top choice. This is good to tie with lighter dumbbell eyes because you need to hover this fly beside the fish and swim it a little bit rather than sinking it to the bottom, because these insects live above the bottom attached to aquatic vegetation. So keep that in mind if you're going to tie this pattern up or fish it. The next fly, of course, is the fly that I'm using today, the Darth Vader or dark hybrid carp fly. This is an adaptation of the standard hybrid carp fly, and it is black with a red rubber leg for the worm tail. And what this fly does is it's literally designed solely for muddy water. These fish can see it, it stands out, and it's got a nice profile. It's that simple. It doesn't really resemble anything specific, it just gets the job done. All right, there's another one. There are so many fish up close to the shore feeding, and I think most of them have completed the spawn. So what I'm encountering is just a mass feeding frenzy. This is like the ultimate scenario that you always wish for when you're fishing. A ton of fish feeding all at once, and you're in the right place at the right time. So give these 3 flies a shot. As I said before, the recipes will be down below. You can go check those out on my website and blog at tfgflies.com. I'm not going to go into too much detail in how to tie some of these flies in this video. I'm not going to go into too much detail about all kinds of specific carp flies. I just wanted to give you 3 basic flies that will get you into fish to get you started, but I will be doing more videos in the future about how to tie certain carp flies and fly selection that are a little bit more detailed and have more information for you. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't so you don't miss those videos when they come out. Look, there's another fish following him. There are fish coming up from the bottom right now, and they are coming right after him. Dark hybrid, baby. This fly gets it done. The last tip that I'm going to provide you with is just about the kind of the gear that you need to have. I'm not going to go into crazy detail here, just because I am going to be doing a very specific video on carp gear, so stay tuned for that as well. If I were going to recommend any fly rod to someone who wants to go out and target carp, I would recommend a 8-weight setup that has a fighting butt. Make sure that you have a fighting butt. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. These fish will take you into your backing in seconds. So just make sure that you have a stout fly rod with a fighting butt. I would highly recommend an 8-weight, but you don't have to use an 8-weight. You could use anything between a 6 and an 8-weight. That's what I would suggest. Some 6-weights do come with fighting butts. They're a little bit harder to find. So that's why I recommend an 8-weight, because most of the time 8-weights have fighting butts on them. And when you're dealing with heavy cover and being able to steer a larger fish's head out of cover, you need to have some backbone. Whatever fly reel that you choose to match up with your fly rod, you need to make sure that it has at least a decent drag system, because these fish are powerful and they will go on runs. They will take you into your backing very quickly. So just make sure that you have a decent disc drag system. I would highly recommend steering away from click and pawl drag systems, just because they won't be able to hold up to the fish's strength, and you need to take fish on the reel when you're fly fishing for carp. The next thing that I recommend is using straight fluorocarbon for your leader. Fluorocarbon is abrasion resistant. It's tough. It's tougher than mono, and it sinks. As you can see, these fish have taken me into a lot of weeds and sticks, and my line has been rubbed up against just junk in the water. So you need to be able to have line that's going to be holding up to the test. The nice thing about fluorocarbon is that if you are fishing carp in clear water, it's invisible. Once it goes below the surface of the water, you can't see it. Fish can't see it, at least. So if you're using anything less than 10-pound fluorocarbon, you're really selling yourself short, and you're just going to break fish off. So I hope you enjoyed the tips that I provided for you today. I know they'll help you catch more carp. They'll increase your hookup percentage. They've worked for me, and I know they'll work for you. Man, I caught a lot of fish today. This was so much fun coming here. You know, when this marsh is filled with water, it is just awesome, because the fish go up into the shore, into the woods. I mean, you can catch carp in places that you never even dreamed of. And it's just so cool to see these fish rooting around in 2 inches of water, rooting around in bushes and, tall grass. They just go on a feeding frenzy. It was great to be on a small body of water and just time it right, and just have one of those epic days where you can just catch a pile of fish. You know, my new fly rod, the Shakespeare Cedar Canyon fly rod, if it can hold up to these carp, I'd say it's pretty good. It's got plenty of backbone, and I was really pleased with how well it performed. As always, I'll put a link in the description for you to all my gear that I used today, so you can check that out. And if it's something that can help you out and get you into more fish, hey, go for it. Pull the trigger. If you like this video, go ahead and hit thumbs up. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And make sure you hit that bell so you know when I release new videos. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Take care, and we'll catch you next time.